Hey, what's up, guys? What's up? Welcome to another Facebook, YouTube Live. Sorry. I'm so used to doing Facebook Lives. It's YouTube Live, Facebook Live. What do you call these things? Hey, I'm live. I'm here to answer your questions. So basically, the way these work is you get to show up and you get to ask me any question that you can think of, and I will answer it to the best of my ability. What's up, Tracy? Hi, haha. Orange Blossom. 2112 with the heart. Thank you. Tracy says, good, you're live. Yeah, I'm live. So what do you guys have for me today? Glad that you're here, certainly. Carl says, my ex left me for his ex-wife, and it's killing me. Carol. I'm so sorry about that, Carol. As you can see, I am like completely dyslexic. I can't even read your names. And now it's killing me. Okay, so I guess the first question I should ask you, Carol, what have you done so far? What's worked? What hasn't worked? Give me kind of the down low. Tracy says, my ex is so handsome. He dumped me last August 1st. Okay, so it's like a month ago. And again, same question to you, Tracy. What have you done so far? What's worked? What hasn't worked? Are you trying to get them back? Are you trying to get over them? Where are we at in the process? And if you're new to this, don't be shy about asking questions. I tend to be very, very responsive. And I'll be on here for about 25, 30 minutes. So actually, it's August 3rd, says Tracy. Well, again, that's still like a month. And on average, what I've found working through with lots of different clients and everything is that the average time it takes to get next back, and this is probably going to be some devastating news for some of you, is actually around 6 months. It's a process that you have to put some time into, and realistically, don't buy into anything anyone else says about like this happening in 30 days or what have you. In my experience, it takes quite a bit longer than that. So Carol says, okay, he asked for space on the 13th of July, like the 100th time he asked for space, but the first time he actually took the space. And okay, so the first 2 weeks he wanted me back, but I was too scared to say yes because I felt the space was needed. Hey, what's up, Sylvia, or is it Sylvia? Says, hello, everyone. What's up, Sylvia? So Carol, continue your story. I promise I'm following you. I'm going to move on to Tracy. I do not contact him first. He's always contact me first. Tell me about his dad and send me pics of those puppies, which he said reminds him of me. So Tracy, it sounds to me like there's interest there, especially if it's a good sign if he's reaching out to you and you're not having to think up topics. That tends to be a pretty good sign. I would say, if he's reaching out to you constantly, the name of the game right now is rapport building and getting momentum built. Not a lot of people look at it this way, but this is absolutely the way it has to be. You're going to have a lot easier of a time if you actually get some momentum building. So I would actually say, if you're engaging him in conversations, are those conversations pretty bare bones, or are you actually talking about some interesting topics that are going to make him feel good or make him excited? And if you're not, maybe that's where you should start to build that foundation and build that momentum up. Carol says, we went out on the 28th and the 29th. The 28th went amazing, and the 29th we argued. So what did you argue about, Carol? This is like a whole saga. I love it. Lori says, my ex and I broke up 4 months ago. He liked some comments on friends list, then sent me a friend request and has since gone quiet. What's up with that? So one thing I'm not shocked to hear that at all, Lori. The one thing you have to realize about breakups is exes will do some weird crap all of the time. They do all sorts of weird things. So I've seen men and women delete their exes from Facebook or whatever, Instagram, Snapchat, what have you. I've seen them block, and then I've seen them unblock days later only to block them again. And the way I look at it, the way I look at it is it's just par for the course, right? It's just part of the way things going. Don't read too much into it and make it like this big deal when it's really not. What matters more when it comes to learning if your ex is interested is really the time. How much time are they spending or investing into you? The more time that they're spending and investing into you, the better. It means you mean something to them. Risa says, "My ex came back. What if my ex came back? What would I do?" Well, I suppose you'd be happy. Are you asking about how like you should keep that relationship intact and not repeat the sins of the past? Sylvia, you read my name like it's English version of Sylvia. It's Sylvia, although I like Sylvia better because it's a lot easier for me to deal with. Okay. Orange Blossom. I'm in my 5th month and he's still ghosting me. We were even engaged together 2.5 years. I broke up with him because he didn't text me for 5 days, but quickly took it back. But it was too late. So Orange Blossom, whatever your real name is, although Orange Blossom is pretty badass. All right. So here's the concept I want you to try out. It's this concept of priming. Right. So oftentimes we're not going to, some men or women can be extremely stubborn after breakups. We'll be sort of the kind of people that say, no, they have to contact me first. I'm not going to reach out to them. They're going to have to reach out to me. That's fine. Understand that that's going on and use it to your advantage. So what I've come up with is the idea of priming, right? So we already know around an 89% of exes will, at least studies have shown 89% of exes will Facebook creep on their exes after a breakup. They will watch you from afar. So make sure that you're controlling the narrative, controlling what they're seeing from afar. They need to see you happy, excited, doing new things, and almost by watching you from afar, you're giving them reasons to want to reach out. You're intriguing them. Now, you say here that you just want closure. I don't think constantly hounding him for a response through text messages is the way to go to get that kind of closure. The way to go is to maybe create enough of a exciting or mysterious or adventurous reason for why he would want to respond to you if you do reach out to him. Carol Donovan says, "We argued because at an event he was spit he argued and was smitten staring at a woman. We didn't speak since then, and on the 3rd he did a personal development course." Okay. And I will continue reading. Kathleen. "Hello, Kathleen. How are you? I made the mistake of deleting my ex off social media. It's been a while. Should I re-add him or leave it?" In my opinion, my stance on this has always been you should ideally re-add him when you get back in contact with him and start building rapport. That's the ideal time to do that. For now, you're just in the situation you're in. It's not the end of the world that you don't have social media to your advantage right now. I would still say post really positive things on social media, just because of, like I said, even if your ex has been um, deleted or unfriended on Facebook, for example, since that seems to be the most common social media platform out there, even if your ex has been unfriended on Facebook, it is super easy for them to go to their friend's house, say like, "Hey, let's look at Kathleen's profile. I want to see what she's up to." I've had friends come to me and ask me to do this for them. I know my wife has had friends ask, basically do the same thing. So even if you've been blocked or you've been deleted off social media, still post stuff. Yes. Tracy says but he sounds bipolar because I've been observing him on Instagram. He unfollows them, then follows them after two days again, and then unfollows them again. Tracy, I'm telling you, this is exactly normal behavior. I've seen this happen time and time again. And then Tracy goes on to say, just like when we broke up, he started following 400 plus of sexy half nude models with all of those tattoos. You got to be careful about that because sometimes those are like fat men in Massachusetts or something that are making all these profiles. So I don't know. I wouldn't read too much into it. And if anything, it seems more like to me he's trying to make you jealous. And this is his lame, immature attempt at doing that. Carol says from 7:29 to 8:05, no words. He finally called, read me an apology letter, and never heard from him again. And I just went into no contact since he has not initiated word. I later found out he has been seen with his ex-wife. Well, being seen with his ex-wife and being with his ex-wife are two completely different things, right? So I think you're right for doing the no contact rule. That's always the standard first thing that you should do in these situations. How long are you going to be doing your no contact for? How long have you made it through? And don't forget that idea of priming that I was just talking about to, I think it was someone, Tracy, I think it was, or Kathleen, I can't remember. My memory is that short. It is. Okay. S. Roland, hey Chris, when it comes to keeping the momentum going, how can I make that happen if the only contact is via email, social media, and it's a no go as he doesn't have an account and won't text? Thanks. So, like I said, I think what you need to do is incite enough curiosity in an indirect way to make him want to be responsive to you. I also think when you're stuck just having email and social media as the primary methods of communication, you have to be really careful about where you pick your spots, because it can get really annoying and really obvious if you're trying to get someone back if you're messaging them like 15 times without a response, right? So what you want to do is you really want to make sure that you're doing everything possible to be noteworthy from afar, so that when you do reach out, you're kind of stacking the odds in your favor. Now, this is not an exact science. I will say that off the bat. There's no guarantees when it comes to this. And this is perhaps the most difficult thing for men and women to wrap their minds around, that there's no guarantees here, and that this isn't a perfect science, and that we're still learning what works best. Right. I've been at this for 6.5 years now, since 2012. And the one thing I've constantly experienced is that this is a learning process, even for me. I know a lot because I've advised a lot of people over 6.5 years, so I've been able to test out what works and what doesn't work. But I still learn new things almost every single day when I tell one of my clients to try out a strategy and they try it out and it doesn't work. I said, okay, that doesn't work. Then I try this other strategy out. And oftentimes I find that execution seems to be the most difficult part for a lot of people. Taking what I say on faith and actually executing it seems to be a difficult thing. But yeah, I want to say what I think works best is building up enough credibility, enough interest from afar, and then reaching out via those means. Spandon says, hello, what's up, Spandon? Um, Carol says his ex is very toxic. They were separated 3 years when I met him. We were together 3 years. Amazing, amazing relationship. Well, okay, so Carol, one thing, are you familiar with the being there method, right? So the being there method is actually a brainchild I think my wife came up with. And the premise is simple. You're going to intimidate it's when your ex is with someone else, you indirectly intimidate that other person simply by being present. So my question to you, Carol, is has this other woman, this ex-wife, been constantly present throughout your relationship? All right, hold on here. Next up is Orange Blossom says, thank you. You're welcome. Paul Bradbury. Hey again. Ex went out for a day with me and the kids. All good for 2 days. 3 days later, her new second rebound, 4 weeks old, is back. And she now went very cold. I'm not texting or calling now. I got the kids for the weekend. So I think the key for you is, like I just said to Carol, with the being there method, the same kind of strategy is what I would employ for you. In fact, I would more look at how much time you can get her to invest. So ideally, you want her to invest as much time as possible into you, right? So into your relationship, even with the kids and you together. I will say this, that typically when you get someone to invest time into you, you don't want them coming off of it feeling bored or sad or depressed or anything like that. You want them coming off feeling excited and good. And that's pretty basic math, right? I'm not saying anything revolutionary here, but the reason for why is kind of interesting, because if you've heard any of my if you've watched any of my YouTube videos, I think this week or last week, I talked a little bit about this concept of the good feelings versus bad feelings theory. And the concept's pretty simple. As human beings, we're drawn to things that make us feel good, and we repel things that make us feel bad. So if she comes off of those interactions with you and she feels kind of weird about it, she's not going to be drawn to you again. So what we want to do is try to think of ways to make her have a good time, even at your expense, to where you're not having that great of a time, but you know for a fact she's having a good time. You kind of have to sometimes make that sacrifice to get her to maybe invest more and more and more. Ideally, if this works out perfectly, you're getting her to invest almost like an addiction. She's like has to come back to you to get that addiction filled. That's like if things work out perfectly, that's the way you're looking to go. Okay. So Spandon says, "Hey Chris, what's up, Spandon?" Carol says, "When the ex noticed his happiness, she canceled the divorce and all fell apart. I want him back." Ah, that's tricky. So the being there method is probably the prime thing for you to focus on. Seriously, the prime thing for you to focus on. And the other thing I'm going to ask you, Carol, is the ex-wife. Does she share kids with him? Because that's an important aspect of this. LJ says, my ex Facebook blocked me. 3 weeks later, I left the online guild I was in with him. No word. He called me out in world chat. Are we talking World of Warcraft here? About holding a grudge, etc. What's up with that? To me, it seems like you're trying to get back someone who's quite immature, who hasn't had a lot of relationship experience. It doesn't really know the quote unquote proper protocol. It also seems to me like he's getting some outside social influence about like, hey, what happened with LJ? And he's trying to make that olive branch, even though it's kind of like he's the one that started it. I would probably let him know or give him some clarification. Let's see, he blocked you 3 weeks later. Have you tried reaching out at all in those 3 weeks, or have you just gone straight no contact? That would be my question for you. Tracy says he was asking me when is my flight back and how many months last week, but I don't know if he still likes me because he deleted all of my pictures when I just did not answer him right away. After his questions, now I am in 2 weeks. How I am after his questions, how I am after 2 weeks of the breakup. Okay, I'm not sure there's a question in there. um, okay, so I guess the one thing I'll hook into there is the deleting of the pictures. Does that mean anything when your ex deletes their pictures of you on social media? In my opinion, it doesn't mean as much as you think. It means something, no doubt, but it doesn't mean as much as you think. And I think it's completely overblown. More than anything, it seems like a reactionary type thing, a thing that someone's going to do to elicit a reaction out of you. So I think that's sort of what I'd pay attention to if I was you. Calope says, "Hey, Chris, I have a long question. My ex is reaching out more. Yes, a mutual friend told me he asked about me twice, even though he just spoke to me 2 days prior. I'm tempted to reach out. Should I? I would only reach out if you're sure the odds are in your favor, and if you're sure you have some rapport building. For me to properly answer this question, I'd first ask, okay, are you familiar with my theory on the value chain? Or the value ladder, which is essentially you're slowly climbing the ladder and adding more value to your conversations as time goes by. Have you done the no contact rule? And if you have, okay, great. The next step is to reach out to them and build that rapport back up. And so yeah, that would be my first sort of question for you. Carol Donovan, should I try to move on? Okay, so Carol, here are my thoughts on it. Moving on is a difficult thing for people in your situation to do because we're in the midst of this addiction. I know it sounds weird for me to call it that. It sounds like, oh my God, I've got a drug problem. No, not at all. Actually, when scientists have done studies, they've hooked brains up to MRI machines when the brains have gone through heartbreak, or when people have gone through heartbreak. They've actually found the part of the brain that lights up when you start thinking or see pictures of your ex is the same part of the brain that lights up when a cocaine addict is looking for a fix, right? So that is how hard it can be to quit this habit of thinking about your ex. So I don't think it's as simple as like, okay, should you try to move on? Certainly, you should try to move on if you think you can. I'm not going to stop you. My whole thoughts on this though is it's a lot more difficult than you think, and oftentimes you just wind up almost like walking in circles right back to where you started from. And that's the difficult part about this. So more than anything, what I would do is try to craft a strategy for you where kind of both are happening, where you're going to advance yourself and potentially getting him back, but also at the same time cultivating your life so that you're moving on a little bit. And there is an interesting synergy between the two. Oftentimes I find it's the people who are actually starting and trying to move on that have a lot better chance of getting their ex back. Why? Because they're not so addicted. They're not doing things that their ex can pick up on like subtly. They're doing things full force. They're not afraid to lose their ex, and that's a huge advantage throughout this process. Anyway, Spandon says, "Hey Chris, I recently broke up with my ex a week ago. Now I'm on my no contact period. My ex reached out on the 5th and asked me to take the ring back, which I gifted her on her B-day. I would seriously not respond to it. Seriously, not respond to it until your no contact is up. I would also, if I was you, start charting how many times she reaches out to you during no contact. I have this really strict rule now about not being super strict with the no contact rule like I used to be. So what do I mean by that? Well, I mean, like, if she reaches out to you like 7 times and progressively reaching out to you gets more needy or more desperate, and she even starts to want you back, or even says something like, I miss you, or I loved you, I'm having a hard time without you, you can actually shorten your no contact period from a 30-day rule to a 21-day rule. So start charting. That's my advice. And stay true. I know it's hard, especially when she wants you to take the ring back, but it's not an engagement ring, right? At least I hope not. I'm guessing it's like a promise ring or something like that. Calope says, should I let him initiate all contact even after no contact, or should I initiate the conversation too? So ideally, it's great if you're getting him to initiate most of the contact. That's great. What I would say, most of my clients, what I tell them to shoot for is a 50-50 split. So half the time they're reaching out, half the time the ex is reaching out. That's like kind of the ideal sort of relationship, because not a lot of people realize this, but one of the factors of falling in love is, well, we tend to fall in love with people who reciprocate for us. So if he's the one doing all the work, he's not feeling that reciprocation. So you do want to kind of match him a little bit. Andrea says, how do you do no contact when you have friends in common? Well, I mean, you can do the no contact rule. It's only on your ex. You're not doing it on the friends. But if you do have friends in common, maybe you just sort of like you can respond to them, but you're not going to be as engaged with the friends even until after no contact. But if you want to try something new out, one thing I've been playing around with is actually using the friends to your advantage, right? So I talked a lot about priming in this YouTube live, this idea of having, when your ex watches you from afar, you want them to see or take certain things from the experience by watching you from afar indirectly, as opposed to directly from you. And one of the best ways to do this is having the friends sort of report back to the ex. Now, you're not going to tell the friends what to say to the ex. You're going to simply show the friends, like maybe you've always wanted to go skydiving. Go skydiving, invite one of the friends to go with you. Right? That friend is inevitably going to get back to him. He's going to hear about it and he'll start thinking about you. The more you can do things like that, maybe the better. That's how you would use the friends to your advantage. Dominique says, what goes around comes around, I suppose. I think I don't necessarily agree with that statement, because I think a lot of things, but if you want me to expand on my thoughts on it, I would like to hear your thoughts on it in some context. And Andrea says, what if he left me for another girl? Okay, so the thing I want you to sort of learn about is actually go to our website, Ex-Boyfriend Recovery, and shameless plug there, and look up the Being There method, right? I think he even did a YouTube video on this, but the Being There method has been probably the most effective way that we found to handle situations in which another person is involved. And it's even backed by science now. And it's one of those morally gray strategies that it can only be, it's sort of, if it's morally okay with you, go for it. If it's morally not okay with you, stay away from it. That's sort of that. But it's my job to tell you what works and what doesn't work. And we found that being there method works. So the cusp of the being there method is essentially you are going to try to compete with the new girl or man with time, right? So if the more you can get your ex to invest time into you as opposed to the new girl, the better. Okay, you're not going to try to cheat or anything like that. That's not what this is. You're basically essentially friend zoning yourself on purpose. Friend zoning yourself and kind of upping maybe some flirtation every once in a while. But again, not cheating. Just want to put that out there. And also, I do recognize it's a morally gray strategy, but hey, it works. Okay, well, what I'm going to try to do now is focus on some of the people who I haven't answered before, or people who compliment me. So if you want to get complimenting, I will give you a shout out. For example, Tracy, I am laughing right now. Chris is I was really preoccupied answering all of our problems. True that. You should see on actually the Facebook lives that I do. So if you don't know, actually we have a anyone who buys any of my products basically gets access to this private Facebook support group. It's full of people who are trying to get their exes back. And I do Facebook. I'm actually going to do a Facebook Live today. And it's like YouTube is like crazy, right? You're seeing how the YouTube chat, Facebook Live is like 10 times worse because the people, I guess, are expecting the YouTube, the Facebook Lives. Anyways, Carol says, Chris, you're doing amazing, by the way. Well, thank you. And Carol, okay, so I think should you text him? In a nutshell, I think if my thoughts on this is it doesn't really necessarily matter so much who texts first. What matters is who ends the conversation first. I think that's the more impactful thing, how things end. So Carol, should you text him? Only if you think and you work out your overall sort of strategy. And again, I would highly recommend that you go to our website and kind of understand some of the basic bare bones value ladder things that we teach. Only if you've done the necessary work to get a positive response, then I would sort of reach out. I'm very into playing this like a chess match, right? You're not going to make a move unless you know for a fact it's going to benefit you in some way, shape, or form. Skibby, do you recommend avoiding places where you might see your ex in public during no contact? I would say I would say not flat out avoid, but lessen the amount of time that you spend there because sometimes I think running into your ex during no contact can be beneficial because one of the biggest fears that men and women have when they're actually doing a no contact rule is, and this is like the craziest fear to me, but they for some reason think that their ex is going to forget them. I've never seen that happen once ever in the history I've been doing this, but okay. So they're scared that their ex is going to forget them. So one thing you have to do is try to find indirect ways during the no contact rule to kind of remind them of you. And one great way of doing that is to accidentally run into you and see you from afar or something and have them be scared to talk to you. That's great. That's what you want. I cannot tell you how often that works great, but I'm hesitant to like say, yes, do it, frequent those places because sometimes people take it to an extreme to the point where they'll break no contact constantly and it loses its effectiveness. All right. Dave says, hi, my ex broke up with me 5 months ago, no longer talks to me and with a new guy. I'm the one doing the contact. I'm slowly giving up any help. So what you're looking for, Dave, is any kind of progression is good progression, even if it's slow progression. So don't like give up necessarily if you're seeing some small steps and small steps forward. I will say though, if you're not seeing any kind of progression forward, you need to give me a little bit more to go on of what you've done so far, and I can point out and say this is the problem. And the crazy part is, so I'm used to coaching people who have bought products from me, and there's nothing that motivates someone to actually try something out more than when they spend money on it. And so a lot of you guys have not bought any products from me, right? So You haven't tried any of the strategies out that I've taught, most likely, other than maybe the basic no contact rule. But that's like everyone's basic strategy. So you can go around and look at all of my peers. I think Brad Browning is at one. You've got that Love Advice TV people. They're another. Everyone's going to have some form of no contact to begin with, but it's what happens after no contact where everyone differs, right? And so everyone, Brad Browning's trying to think of his way to what's the best way to get the X back. I've got my way of what I think is the best way to get the X back. Everyone else has their own specific ways of what they think is going to be the best way to convince an ex to get back into a relationship with you. Now, the cool part is I think that my way is probably the soundest, most successful way, because we continue to get success stories every single day. And many of those success stories will jump on and do an interview with me live. And not a lot of the other people out there have those kind of success stories. So it tells me, maybe my strategy might be a little bit better, but that's me being arrogant. So here's the ultimate point I'm trying to make. You're going to, if you're going to contact your ex, right, and you're doing contact and they're responsive, but you're not really getting the kind of responses that you want, they're just kind of neutral, something's going wrong, and maybe something's out of alignment with the overall strategy. So I can't sit here on a YouTube live and basically do all of the work for you. That's the difficult part about this. You have to put some work in, and sometimes that work requires gathering the knowledge that it's going to take to get your ex back. And not a lot of people tend to have shorter attention spans nowadays. And, some of the articles I write can be very long, very in-depth. Some of the podcasts I record, some of the YouTube videos I do, not a lot of people are going to watch them to the end. At least that's what I found. So the people who tend to do better at this process are the people who actually are so motivated to get a positive result that they'll actually go and read and listen and watch everything they possibly can and read it from start to finish. And I'm not even going to say like, okay, pick my way is the only way. Pick what way works, whatever best for you. But I will say we have lots of proof in our pudding. Anyways, let's see here. One more, and Spandom says Chris is the coolest dude ever when it comes to relationship and breakup advices. And that is awesome. And Tracy says, thanks, Chris. We love you. Oh, thank you, Tracy. I should have. Paul says, you are so amazing. You are like a god from heaven. Well, my name is Chris, which rhymes with Christ. No, I'm just kidding. Andrea says, thank you very much for your advice. You helped me getting him back the first time. Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that, Andrea. Now I'm trying to get him back, but at the same time, move on. So I end up happier, and whatever happens, happens. Andrea says, when do you do the being there method? Do you do first the no contact rule? Actually, yes. Okay, so this will be the last question I answer, I guess, Andrea. And I'm pretty sure I've said this before, but it's okay. Lots of people have the same questions because not everyone's going to attend these YouTube lives at like every single one. Okay, so what I used to believe is that a short no contact period when your ex is with someone else is ideal. That's what you want to do. That's false. What we've actually found from actually testing things out is longer no contact periods seem to work better, because if you're going, it's a function of timing when you're trying to get your ex back and they're with someone else. So you want the timing to be ideal. And there's no worse time to try to get your ex back when they're in the honeymoon period with this new person. So instead, extending the no contact period to maybe 45 days and waiting it out for maybe them to kind of level off, for the emotions and the chemicals to kind of level off and get a little bit more normalized, benefits you greatly. It helps the timing aspect of it. And then simply the being there method is all about positioning. So hopefully that helps. Yes, you're going to do the no contact rule, and contrary to popular belief, you're going to do a longer one. That's what I've found through my research. Now, not every situation works out exactly like that, I will say. But generally speaking, that's what I would focus on. Okay, guys, so that is going to do it for this YouTube live. This is, I believe, YouTube live number 4. We're going to be keep doing this. It's going to be kind of a weekly thing. Next week might be a little difficult. I actually think I might do a YouTube live earlier on Monday potentially, because I have some family coming into town, and I'm going to be kind of like held up playing host for them. But in the meantime, what we can do is maybe get a YouTube live in a little bit earlier on Monday and rock it then. So if you are if you showed up late and you want your questions answered, make sure you pay attention to what's going on Monday, and we shall help you the best way that we possibly can, or I will. And maybe one of these days I can get Jen, my wife, to do a YouTube live, and we also have Anna, who's another coach. I'll see if I can get her to do a YouTube live as well, so that you can get maybe some different perspectives, and that would be kind of pretty badass, because I don't believe that I know everything there is to know. I believe that a collection of individuals will always outwit one person, but that's just me. Anywho, see you guys later. It was a blast. Thank you so much. And hey, if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do so. Please, please, please. I'll get on my hands and knees and beg and even do a dance for you. All right, so take care.